The movie begins with a flashback to the year 1990. A highly secretive organization known as the Async Corporation is conducting a classified research project. We see the world through the lens of a handheld camera operated by one of their lead explorers, Naren. He has crossed over into a strange, terrifying, multi-dimensional space known simply as the Backrooms. Everywhere Naren looks, there's nothing but endless, monotonous yellow hallways stretching infinitely in every single direction. The humming of fluorescent lights and the sickening smell of old damp carpet fill the air. Terrified and completely disoriented, Naren desperately searches for a way out. Suddenly, he spots a thick bundle of black cables snaking across the floor, hoping they lead to an exit. He follows them until he reaches a room filled with heavy video equipment and camera gear. Paranoia setting in. He quickly drags a massive storage box in front of the door, hoping to barricade himself against whatever is lurking in the maze. Breathing heavily, he grabs a two-way radio and attempts to contact his team. He frantically explains that he has been separated and urgently needs extraction. But as he speaks, a strange, unnatural noise echoes from the adjacent room. Nervously, Naren inches toward the sound. To his brief relief, he discovers it is just a bird, another unfortunate creature that somehow clipped out of reality and became trapped in the back rooms just like him. Taking a deep breath, Naren continues his exploration. But the deeper he ventures, the more bizarre the environment becomes. He finds pieces of furniture that appear half-finished, glitched into the floor. Entire rooms look like distorted, corrupted copies of the real world. Soon, the chilling realization hits him. He is not alone. A horrifying, unnatural entity known as a still life begins stalking him through the endless yellow corridors. Pure panic takes over. Naren sprints for his life, desperately searching for a place to hide. But the maze offers no sanctuary. He reaches a dead end, and the terrifying creature lunges. Naren falls victim to the brutal attack as his camera crashes to the floor. Meanwhile, back in the real world, the scientists at the Async Corporation watch the entire horrific event unfold on their monitors. Despite witnessing the gruesome attack in real time, they simply observe in cold silence, unable to save him. The story jumps forward several decades to the present day. We are introduced to Dr. Mary Klein, a psychologist standing sadly on a suburban street, watching her childhood home being demolished by heavy machinery. Wanting to preserve a physical piece of her past, she manages to salvage a block of cement bearing the handprints she and her mother pressed into it when she was a little girl. Next, we meet a man named Clark. Clark's life is in absolute shambles. His wife recently kicked him out of their house, and since the separation, he has been struggling with severe alcoholism and dangerous emotional instability. He owns a failing furniture store called Captain Clark's Ottoman Empire, but the business is on the verge of total collapse. Seeking help, Clark attends a therapy session with Dr. Mary Klein. During the session, he opens up about his overwhelming loneliness. To help him process his deep-seated issues, Mary engages him in a role-play exercise, acting as his wife and asking him point-blank why their marriage fell apart. Clark confesses that his explosive anger was the primary reason. He bitterly complains that even though he was kicked out, he is still drowning under the pressure of paying all the household bills and her college tuition. He recalls coming home stressed one night and violently smashing a glass in a fit of rage. After venting his frustrations to Mary, Clark feels a brief, fleeting sense of relief. Later, trying to save his dying business, Clark dresses up in a cheap pirate costume as his alter ego, Captain Clark, alongside his assistant manager, Kat, and her boyfriend, Bobby. He shoots a cheesy local commercial offering special discounts. But the shoot goes horribly wrong when the display chair Clark is sitting on suddenly breaks beneath him, further adding to his mounting frustrations. That night, because he has nowhere else to go, Clark is secretly living inside his furniture store. As he watches TV, the screen abruptly shuts off. A few moments later, all the lights in the massive showroom violently turn on by themselves, flickering aggressively before plunging the store back into darkness. Deeply disturbed, Clark drives to his old house and sits in his car, silently watching his wife through the window. The next night, he returns to the store. As he watches TV again, A strange, unnatural blue room flashes across the screen for a fraction of a second. That brief, impossible glitch convinces Clark that something paranormal is happening inside his building. Determined to find the source, he heads down to the dark basement to inspect the fuse box. He shuts off the main power, plunging the basement into pitch blackness. That's when he notices it, a mysterious, sickly yellow light glowing from deep inside one of the solid concrete walls. Drawn to the eerie glow, Clark reaches his hand out. To his absolute shock, his hand and body passes straight through the solid concrete. Clark steps entirely through the wall. On the other side, he finds himself standing in the exact same endless, yellow backrooms that Naren explored decades ago. Shocked beyond belief, Clark realizes his basement wall acts as a literal portal between two dimensions. Driven by a dangerous, overwhelming curiosity, he ventures deeper into the humming yellow maze. He quickly makes a bizarre discovery: a massive pile of furniture that looks identical to the display models from his own store. As he carefully navigates the endless hallways, he stumbles across the remains of the dead bird from the 1990 recording. Nearby, he finds a strange, distorted statue playing a garbled audio track, in a passageway littered with abandoned camera gear and personal belongings, the remnants of the doomed researcher Naren. Following the twisted path, Clark enters a room where shoes and chairs are literally sunken halfway into the floor, as if the dimension itself failed to render them completely. Suddenly, a strange sound echoes through the dark corridors. Clark cautiously calls out, asking if anyone is there. Instead of a person, a horrifying, skeletal, still-life creature emerges from the shadows. Terrified, Clark turns and sprints back the way he came. Miraculously, he manages to retrace his steps, diving back through the portal into his basement just in time. But before leaving, he grabs a strange piece of Backrooms furniture and drags it into the real world. Along with his fear, a deep, dangerous obsession with the dimension has now taken root inside his mind. What Clark doesn't know is that an Async Corporation scientist named Phil has been watching his every move through the hidden CCTV cameras still active in the maze. The next day, Clark visits Dr. Mary Klein for his therapy session. He frantically tries to explain his impossible discovery, drawing a map of the interconnected subspaces beneath his shop. But Mary, relying on logic, flatly refuses to believe him, dismissing his claims as severe alcoholic delusions. Frustrated and desperate, Clark swears he will return with undeniable proof to force her to believe him. Clark returns to his store and convinces Kat and Bobby to help him investigate the secret basement area, urging them to bring a camera to record everything. Hours later, the trio heads downstairs. Kat and Bobby laughed, thinking it's a joke, until Clark steps directly into the solid wall and vanishes. Terrified but deeply curious, Kat and Bobby step through the portal, entering the unsettling yellow maze. They record everything as Clark leads them deeper. Reaching a drop-off, Clark ties a heavy rope around Bobby's waist and lowers him into a dark, narrow passage to scout ahead. Bobby lands in a room filled with massive piles of scattered clothes. Suddenly, the overhead lights begin to flicker violently. Without warning, a terrifying still-life creature materializes right in front of him. Bobby screams in absolute horror. Turning to run, he yells up the shaft, warning Clark and Kat. But before they can pull him up, the rope violently snaps taut. The still life grabs Bobby, dragging him screaming into the darkness. Clark and Kat desperately try to pull him back, but the sheer force yanks both of them down into the passage. They watch helplessly as the monster drags Bobby straight through a solid wall, vanishing entirely. Kat, blinded by panic and loyalty, immediately dives into the maze-like corridors to save her boyfriend. But within seconds, she mysteriously vanishes into the labyrinth as well. Now completely alone and terrified, Clark frantically searches for the exit. But the endless, identical yellow hallways have completely disoriented him. He is lost. As he wanders blindly, he stumbles into a bizarre room containing a fully decorated Christmas tree. Suddenly, a mysterious, distorted, still-life woman slowly approaches him. Panicking, Clark runs away, locking himself inside an endless tiled bathroom space. After hours of suffocating silence, he begins hearing Kat's voice echoing through the walls. But the dimension's unnatural acoustics make it impossible to tell where the sound is coming from. Meanwhile, a still-life creature picks up the dropped video camera and slowly begins hunting Clark. Back in the real world, Dr. Mary Klein is reflecting on her own painful past. She recalls her childhood, remembering how her mentally ill mother used to cover all the windows and doors with paper, terrifyingly warning Mary that the outside world was a highly dangerous place. As Mary snaps out of her traumatic memories, she checks her answering machine. She has a disturbing voicemail from Clark, ominously stating that he will never be coming back. Deeply concerned for her patient's safety, Mary immediately drives to his furniture store. Meanwhile, Phil, the async scientist monitoring the back rooms, sees a local TV commercial for Captain Clark's Ottoman Empire and instantly recognizes the man who breached their dimension. Mary arrives at the empty furniture store and heads down to the basement. She finds Clark's hand-drawn map of the back rooms and a strange, chalked design on the concrete wall. As she studies it, a fly buzzes past her and flies straight into the solid concrete, vanishing. Stunned, Mary slowly reaches her hand out, watching it pass through the wall. Realizing Clark wasn't insane, she bravely steps through the portal to save him. Once inside, Mary wanders the endless corridors, shouting Clark's name. She eventually reaches a room displaying a disturbing, painted mural of a monster slaughtering humans. Suddenly, Clark appears behind her. Mary frantically asks where they are. Clark replies in a dark, mysterious tone, "This place is a combination of every place we've ever been." Before he can explain further, a loud, unnatural noise echoes through the hall. Clark shushes Mary, and without warning, he violently grabs her throat, choking her until she loses consciousness. When Mary wakes up, she finds herself tied to a chair in a distorted replica of a dining room. Sitting at the table with Clark are bizarre, humanoid still-life figures. Clark explains a terrifying truth. The back rooms absorb human memories and attempt to recreate them. However, the copies are always twisted and deeply corrupted. He proves the creatures feel no pain, revealing they have become his personal food source in this dimension. To Mary's absolute horror, Clark opens a nearby refrigerator, revealing Kat's severed head. Kat was brutally murdered inside the maze. Terrified, Mary begs for her life. But Clark's mind has completely snapped. He only wants her to say one thing, that the collapse of his marriage was not his fault. He pulls a strand of hair from a still-life woman, places it on Mary, and forces her to roleplay as his wife. He desperately apologizes to her, insisting he did everything to save their marriage. The Backrooms have become Clark's ultimate psychological escape, a place where he never has to admit his failures or take responsibility for his anger. But Mary refuses to play along. She forces him to confront reality, bluntly stating that no one else is responsible for his downfall but himself. When Mary shatters his perfect illusion, Clark's fragile reality breaks. Overcome with guilt, he unties Mary to set her free. But at that exact moment, the still-life woman sitting at the table suddenly sprints away. Instantly, a massive, horrifying monster materializes in the room. It is a grotesque, twisted manifestation of Captain Clark, a literal, physical embodiment of Clark's buried rage, pride, guilt, and failures. The Backrooms have manifested his darkest demons into a real, lethal entity. Clark tries to calm the creature, attempting to confront his own dark soul, but the monster refuses to listen. It lunges forward, viciously tearing into Clark's neck and brutally killing him. In the end, Clark becomes the ultimate victim of his own inner darkness. Using the distraction, Mary sprints for her life. She navigates the terrifying maze, running into an area that looks like a distorted, corrupted copy of Kat and Bobby's old neighborhood. But the Captain Clark monster is relentlessly pursuing her. As she flees, Mary sustains serious injuries, making it agonizing to keep moving. The monster closes in. In a desperate bid for survival, Mary squeezes through a tight crawl space, merging onto a high platform overlooking the vast, infinite, and terrifying expanse of the Backrooms. She eventually stumbles into a twisted replica of Clark's furniture store. Before she can catch her breath, the Captain Clark monster crashes through the displays. A brutal fight ensues. Mary fights back fiercely, managing to snap off one of the monster's wooden, furniture-like legs. During the struggle, she accidentally triggers a strange mechanical device hidden in the room, filling the area with a thick, disorienting gas. The monster lunges for the kill. In her final, desperate moment, Mary pulls the heavy cement handprint block from her pocket, her cherished childhood keepsake, and violently smashes it directly into the monster's face with all her strength. Stunning the creature, she scrambles through a narrow exit portal, finally bursting back into the real world. But the moment she emerges, she is instantly surrounded by heavily armed masked figures in hazmat suits. They spray her with a heavy sedative gas. These are the Async Corporation scientists. They have secured the breach. Mary wakes up inside a highly secure, sterile Async facility, where scientists conduct rigorous medical and psychological tests on her. Meanwhile, armed Async containment teams successfully capture the Captain Clark monster, bringing the entity into their underground labs for study. Later, Mary is escorted to a cold interrogation room where she sits across from Phil. He demands to know exactly how she accessed the Backrooms. When Mary explains the portal inside Clark's shop, Phil shows her surveillance photos confirming her story. Phil reveals the truth. Async originally manufactured MRI machines, but their entire directive shifted decades ago when they accidentally discovered the Backrooms. Their ultimate mission is to map its infinite corridors and harness its dimensional power. Despite decades of research, they still know almost nothing about how it truly operates. Initially, Mary cooperates. But when she realizes that Async has no intention of ever letting her leave the facility alive to protect their secret, she goes completely silent, refusing to answer any more questions. In the chilling final moments of the film, the ultimate terrifying truth about the Backrooms is revealed. The dimension doesn't just trap physical bodies. It actively learns from them. It absorbs human memories, emotional traumas, and deep-seated fears, violently recreating them in the physical world. And now, the Backrooms are doing the exact same thing to Mary. Deep within the infinite yellow maze, new rooms begin to physically manifest, directly shaped by Mary's deepest childhood traumas and painful memories. But the copies are never perfect. They are slightly broken, distorted, and deeply unsettling, a nightmare version of her reality. The Backrooms even manifest a twisted, glitched replica of the very interrogation room Mary is currently sitting in, complete with a terrifying still-life copy of Mary herself waiting in the dark. With that chilling, multi-dimensional revelation, the movie comes to an end. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy the recaps, PLs like and subscribe.